Before we get into the story, I want to say that this is a very heavy story. If you came here to hear a standard, silly cheating story like the hundreds on YouTube, this is not the place. Today's story is not for kids, but for those who have seen some shit in their lives. This is a raw and gritty tale, and it's filled with the kind of pain and betrayal that leaves scars. Hi everyone, my name is Sam, and I need your advice. So I'm a simple truck driver, 30 years old. I don't drink or smoke, and I've worked honestly my whole life. No bullshit. I have a wife, she's 29, her name is Catherine, and she takes care of our 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. Catherine and I met in high school, and it was one of those whirlwind romances. She was the cheerleader, and I was the guy who couldn't keep his eyes off her. We got married right out of high school and started our family young. Our life seemed perfect, at least on the surface. To give you a better idea of who we are very ordinary Americans who stand for traditional values. We go to church every Sunday, the whole family all dressed up. After church, we have brunch at the same diner we've been going to for years. Our community knows us well, and we've always prided ourselves on being a close-knit family. Our house is a modest 2-story home with a white picket fence, the kind of place you'd see in an old TV show. It's a simple life, but it's ours. Yesterday marked a week since the hunting season opened, and I went hunting with my eldest son. It was a crisp autumn day, the kind of day where the leaves crunch under your boots, and the air is so clear it almost hurts to breathe. When we came home, I noticed for the first time that something was off with my wife. She acted like she had drunk several energy drinks, but I found it odd and didn't pay much attention to it at the time. She was jittery, her eyes darting around like she was expecting something or someone to jump out at her, but I chalked it up to her just having an off day. So because I work a lot, I believe I should leave each of my kids a house by the time they turn 21. I'm raising my boys to be real men and my daughter as a princess. I have this grand plan for my kids, wanting to give them the best start in life. My father never smoked or drank, and in my entire life, I only smoked a cigarette once and never tried drugs. You might ask why. Well, firstly because my father didn't do it. Secondly because I wanted to prove to my father that I could achieve something. And thirdly, he always told me that if I smoked or used anything, he would never speak to me again. When I smoked that one time, he found out and didn't talk to me for a year. That lesson stuck with me, and I've tried to instill the same values in my kids. But everything went to hell 2 days ago. My 10-year-old son Tom almost died in my arms. We had come back from a long day at work and school, and I found him on the floor of his room barely breathing. His lips were blue, and his skin was clammy. I called 911 while trying to remember the CPR techniques I learned years ago. It turned out to be methamphetamine pills. Meth. In my house. My son. I couldn't believe it. I still can't. How the fuck did this happen? Where did this come from? How did it happen? How did meth get into my house? Is it related to my wife? I don't know. I don't know what to do. That day I told myself I would find out who did this. I turned our house upside down, looking for any sign of where the drugs might have come from. I tore through closets, searched under beds, even went through the trash. Catherine watched me the whole time, her face pale and her hands trembling. Catherine has been acting strange for a while now. She's been more distant, always on edge, jumping at the slightest noise. She's been spending more time running errands and less time with the kids and me. I wanted to believe it was just stress, or maybe some health issue she didn't want to talk about. But now, with what happened to Tom, I can't ignore the possibility that she's hiding something much darker. Maybe she's involved. Maybe she's not. But I need to know the truth. And I need to know now. Well, of course, the first suspicion fell on my 13-year-old son. Yes, my wife gave birth at 16. We could have had an abortion and killed the baby. Some people believe it's not murder because it doesn't understand anything. But what about an old grandfather with dementia who also doesn't understand anything? Can we kill him too? Of course not, because it's murder. I was 17 when Catherine told me she was pregnant. I was the man who stood by her. I didn't let her parents get an abortion. I stood up for Catherine, and after that, I started working 12 hours a day. I am the one who made this family and took on the whole burden of responsibility. Every morning, I'd wake up at the crack of dawn, put on my boots, and head to the job site, just to make sure there was food on the table and a roof over our heads. Catherine would see me off with a tired smile, her belly growing bigger each day. We were just kids ourselves, thrust into adulthood because of a single mistake, but damn it, we made it work. So I searched the entire house and found nothing in the kids' rooms. Nowhere. Everyone in my family denied that anyone was using this stuff. Of course, I then had two theories about who it could be. First, someone at school gave it to him. Second, it was one of the neighbors or their kids. I tore apart every nook and cranny, every drawer, every closet. I went through their school bags, under their beds, and even in their toys. It felt like I was losing my mind. Catherine watched me silent, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. The kids stood by, looking worried and scared. Tom, the youngest, clung to his mother, asking if Daddy was mad at him. Since my neighbors already knew about this incident, there was no point in asking them. News spreads like wildfire in our small town, and by the time Tom was out of the hospital, everyone knew about the meth incident. The looks I got from our neighbors were a mix of pity and suspicion. I felt like a pariah, like the whole damn world was judging me. So I went to the school and made some noise, but no one confessed. Of course, I wasn't sure everyone was honest with me, but I did everything I could. I checked everyone, but the principal, the teachers, even the damn janitor swore they didn't know anything. I stormed through the school, demanding answers, but all I got were blank stares and hollow assurances. Naturally, I had some trouble with the police, but it was resolved. They were called to the school because of the commotion I caused. They pulled me aside, trying to calm me down, but I was beyond reason. I explained the situation, and while they understood my anger, they warned me to cool it or face charges myself. They asked a few questions, made some notes, but in the end, it was clear they weren't going to dig too deep into this mess. The child is fine. He was discharged from the hospital and he's okay. I was very relieved. Seeing Tom back at home, running around and playing like nothing had happened, was a small comfort. But the shadow of what had happened still loomed large. Every time I looked at him, I couldn't help but think of how close we came to losing him. It was a weight that crushed me every time I closed my eyes at night, every time I tried to go about my day. And today, I saw some pills in my wife's purse. They had no label or anything. I've never used this stuff, so I don't know what it should look like. These were just some pills with no markings. I took one pill and put it in my pocket. The strangest thing is that I did it, and then started thinking it over. It felt like some magical force made me take them. Catherine had left her purse on the kitchen counter, something she never does. I was looking for some change when I saw a small, clear baggie with a few pills inside. My heart skipped a beat. I took one out, felt its weight in my palm, and slipped it into my pocket without thinking. What the hell was I doing? It was like I was on autopilot, driven by a force I couldn't understand. When my wife came home and we were lying in bed, I thought about how I could distrust my wife. Like, what kind of nonsense is this? So I went to see my old classmate who lived in a trailer park. I wanted to ask him if he knew what these pills were. Catherine lay next to me, her breath soft and even, but I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. Was I going crazy? Could I really suspect my own wife? This woman who had stood by me through everything? I got up quietly, slipped on my clothes, and drove to see Jim, an old buddy from high school. Jim was the type of guy who knew the underbelly of society, who'd been in and out of trouble his whole life. If anyone could identify these pills, it was him. I'll remember this scene for the rest of my life. I'm standing in front of my classmate's trailer. It's raining lightly, and some drug addicts are looking at me, probably thinking I'm from the police. My classmate comes out, and behind him is some skinny girl with bruises under her eyes. I give him the pill, and he's like, "Is this for me?" I say, "What is it?" He says, "Methamphetamine, so what? Is this a gift for me?" I stood there, and he kept mumbling something, but I couldn't understand anything anymore. It was like I fell into a void. The world began to collapse. Jim's trailer was a wreck, surrounded by the detritus of a life gone to hell. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes, barely registering my presence. When he saw the pill, his face lit up with recognition. "Meth," he said almost casually, like it was no big deal. My head started to spin. I could barely hear him over the roar of blood in my ears. Meth, the same shit that almost killed my son. I stood there, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath me. The rain mixed with the sweat on my face, and everything around me seemed to blur. Jim was still talking, saying something about the quality of the meth, how it's getting more common in the area, but his words were lost on me. All I could think about was the pill in my pocket and the ones I'd found in Catherine's purse. My knees felt weak, and I thought I might collapse right there in the mud. I decided to find the whole pack of those pills. I went home, quietly searched her bag, found it, but there was nothing there. I locked myself in the bathroom, looked in the mirror and thought, this is a movie. Who am I? What is happening to me? The man staring back at me wasn't the same guy who'd married Catherine all those years ago. He looked worn, beaten down by life's relentless bullshit. My hands were shaking, my eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep and too much stress. I splashed some water on my face, hoping it would snap me out of this nightmare, but all it did was make me feel colder and more awake. I decided to go to a friend and tell him everything. He calmed me down a bit and said it might be some mistake, but we could check and follow her. I agreed. I called up Mike, a buddy I'd known since high school. He was the kind of guy who always had your back no matter what. We met up at his place, a small rundown house on the edge of town. Over a couple of beers, I laid it all out for him. Mike listened, nodding, his brow furrowed. Sam, man, this sounds fucked up, but it could be a mistake. People do stupid shit sometimes. Let's follow her, see what she's really up to. So, we live in a small, cute town, but close to a big city with some rough neighborhoods where you can buy all kinds of junk. I knew that at least there, you could buy something like that. I decided to take a short leave, thinking that if she had more pills, she would eventually run out, and I would pretend to go back to work but actually stay around to watch the house and Catherine. Our town is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else. It's peaceful, quiet, the kind of place where you can leave your door unlocked. But not too far away is the city, a place full of drugs, crime, and danger. I told my boss I needed a few days off for personal reasons, packed a bag, and set up camp in my own damn home, ready to catch Catherine in the act. But after 2 days, I was following my wife in another car, and she drove to, let's say, Philadelphia. Why would she go there? Everything happened as I expected. She went into a sketchy apartment building and came out about an hour later, then drove home. My friend and I tried to go in, but we weren't allowed, so I went home with the thought that I would definitely return. Philadelphia, with its mix of high-rise buildings and rundown neighborhoods, is a world away from our little town. I followed her car through the winding streets, my heart pounding in my chest. When she parked in front of that grimy apartment building, I felt a surge of anger and fear. Mike and I tried to get inside, but a burly dude at the door stopped us cold. We backed off, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Later at home, I asked my wife where she had been, and she lied. I wanted to take her bag, but she kept it with her. When she wasn't around, I checked the bag, but there was nothing. I also checked her phone, but there was nothing there either. When she got back, I played it cool, pretending I hadn't followed her. Hey babe, where were you? She gave me some bullshit story about shopping and meeting a friend for coffee. I tried to grab her bag, but she clutched it tight, her eyes flashing with something I hadn't seen before. Fear? Guilt? I don't know. Later, when she went to take a shower, I rummaged through her things again, but came up empty. Her phone was wiped clean too. This woman was covering her tracks like a pro. My drug addict friend and I went to the place where my wife had gone. When we arrived, it turned out that this was a popular place to get free drugs, especially for women who could get them in exchange for oral sex. So my wife was giving blowjobs for pills. Honestly, I felt like I was going to have a stroke. My hands and feet went numb, and I had a severe panic attack. I thought I was going to die there. Jim, my old buddy from the trailer park, agreed to come with me. We drove back to that filthy apartment building, hearts heavy with dread. When we finally got the info, it was like a punch to the gut. Women trading sexual favors for drugs. My wife, the mother of my children, sucking dick for meth. I could barely breathe. My vision blurred, and I felt like the world was closing in on me. Jim had to drag me out of there before I collapsed completely. I swear I don't understand why God is being so cruel to me. I've tried to live my life right, tried to be a good man, a good father, a good husband. But this is beyond anything I could have ever imagined. What the hell did I do to deserve this kind of pain? Every time I think I've hit rock bottom, the ground crumbles beneath me, and I fall even further. All I wanted was a simple life, a happy family, and a bit of peace. But now, Everything is in ruins. God damn it. What am I supposed to do now? I'm standing in my living room staring at a family photo on the wall. It's from a couple of years ago when we all went to the beach. Everyone's smiling, the kids are laughing, and Catherine is looking at me with love in her eyes. Or at least, that's what I thought at the time. Now all I see is a lie. That smile, those eyes. They were hiding something dark and twisted. I feel like smashing the picture, tearing it off the wall and shattering the glass. But I don't. Instead, I just stand there, numb and broken, trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to fix this mess. In the morning, after all the kids had left for school, I called Kat to the kitchen. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I know everything. I know you're a junkie who gave blowjobs for pills. I know you almost killed our son." We stared at each other in complete silence. I could see tears welling up in her eyes. Then suddenly there was a knock at the door. Our neighbor came by to return a ladder. Just a second ago, my heart was pounding out of my chest from the stress, and now I'm standing there smiling at my neighbor. The surreal contrast almost made me laugh. He handed over the ladder and made small talk about the weather, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside my home. I forced a smile, nodded, and sent him on his way. The second the door closed, the smile vanished. I went back to the table, Kat's eyes red, and I said to her, "Either you go to the police right now and confess everything, or I will." She didn't expect me to say that, but by then I had already accepted the reality. My voice was steady, almost too calm. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, no words coming out. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure a way out, but there was none. Not this time. "Sam, please," she finally whispered, but I cut her off. "No more lies, Kat. No more bullshit. You have to face the consequences." She didn't say anything, started packing her things and left. I thought she was really going to the police, but she just grabbed a few clothes, threw them in a bag, and walked out without another word. I watched her go, my heart a twisted knot of anger, sorrow, and something else I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was relief. Relief that this nightmare was finally coming to a head. So I called my parents and told them that if I ended up at the police station, they should take the kids to their place. My mom answered on the first ring, her voice filled with concern. I gave her a quick rundown, sparing her the dirtiest details, just enough so she understood the gravity of the situation. "Mom, if things go south today, you need to take the kids. Keep them safe." She promised she would, her voice trembling with emotion. Dad got on the phone too, his voice gruff but supportive. "We're here for you, son. Whatever happens, well, take care of the kids." I got into my car about 2 hours later. I thought maybe she was somewhere crying in the car right now, and I could still go to the police and get her punished. So, I drove to a lake, which in the morning had a light fog. I sat on a boat in the middle of the lake, contemplating life and how my life had changed in just a few weeks. The lake was eerily calm, the water like glass reflecting the gray sky above. The fog hung low, muffling the world and making everything feel distant and unreal. I sat there, the silence pressing in on me, thinking about how everything had gone to shit so fast. A month ago, I thought I had a happy family, a good life. Now it was all in pieces, scattered like the mist over the water. When I got home, I saw Kat walking towards me, crying and begging for forgiveness. I won't lie, I slapped her. It was the first time I had hit a woman, even though my mom taught me never to hurt girls. She fell to her knees and started begging for forgiveness. "Sam, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was lost. I was stupid." Her words were a torrent of excuses and apologies, but I couldn't hear them over the roar of blood in my ears. My hand stung from the slap, and I felt sick to my stomach. My father's voice echoed in my head, warning me against violence, but I was too far gone in my rage to care. I got into my car, drove to the police station, and told them everything. The drive was a blur, my mind racing with what I was about to do. The police station was stark and cold, a place of harsh lights and sterility. I walked up to the desk, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. "I need to report something," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. The officer looked at me with curiosity, then ushered me into a small gray room. I laid it all out, every dirty detail. The drugs, the blowjobs, the near death of my son. They listened, took notes, and asked questions. Each word felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders, but it also felt like a betrayal. My wife, the woman I'd loved, had fallen so far, and I was the one to push her over the edge. The officers exchanged glances, their faces impassive but their eyes betraying a hint of pity. "We'll need to bring her in for questioning," one of them said. I nodded, my heart heavy. "Do what you have to do. I just want my kids to be safe." They assured me they'd handle it, and I left, feeling like I'd aged 10 years in a single day. I drove home, the silence in the car suffocating. When I walked in the door, the house felt empty, lifeless. Kat was gone, the kids were at school, and the weight of what had happened settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd confronted Kat that morning, and put my head in my hands. The tears came then, hot and silent, streaming down my face as the reality of my shattered life finally hit me. The kids came home from school and started asking where Mom was. The second they walked through the door, the house felt a little less empty, but the weight of their questions hung heavy in the air. Tom, with his backpack slung over one shoulder, was the first to speak. "Dad, where's Mom? Why isn't she here?" His voice was a mix of confusion and worry. The younger ones echoed his questions, their eyes wide and innocent, not yet understanding the storm that had swept through our family. I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom had to go away for a little while, but everything's going to be okay. I promise." Kat started denying everything and saying that I was an abuser. When the kids eventually heard whispers from the neighbors and classmates, they came back with more questions, and this time, they were harder to answer. Kat, in her twisted logic, had started spinning a web of lies, painting me as the bad guy. "Dad, some kids at school said Mom told them you hit her, and that's why she left. Is that true?" The accusations stung, not because they were true, but because they were coming from my own children. I could see the doubt in their eyes, the seeds of mistrust their mother had planted. "No, kids, that's not true. Your mom is going through something really tough right now, and she's not thinking straight. I would never hurt her. So I will have to face her in court." The realization hit me hard. I'd hoped we could handle this quietly, like adults. But Kat had forced my hand. Now, it would be a public battle, and everything dirty would be aired for everyone to see. I sat down with my lawyer, a no-nonsense guy named Frank, who had seen his fair share of messy divorces. We met in his cluttered office, papers and files stacked high on every surface. "Sam, the main piece of evidence we have is the drugs found in Kat's blood. Without more, it's going to be tough. She's already playing the victim card, saying you're abusive. We need to be prepared for a fight." His words were blunt, but I appreciated the honesty. This wasn't going to be easy. I was also afraid that the neighbors would take her side because I have always been stricter. Honestly, I have a hard time making friends. I really only have 3 friends in my entire life, and my sister is like a friend to me, so that makes 4. Our neighborhood is tight-knit, and people talk. I've always been the dad who set boundaries, who made sure the kids did their chores and homework before they played. Some of the other parents thought I was too strict, too old-fashioned. I worried that when Kat started spreading her lies, they'd be all too eager to believe them. My sister came to support me. Thank God for her. Emily has always been my rock. When she heard about the mess, she dropped everything and drove over, no questions asked. She showed up with a hug and a fierce determination to help me through this. "Sam, we're going to get through this. Those kids need you, and we're not going to let Kat take them away." Her confidence was infectious, a balm to my frayed nerves. She stayed with me, helping with the kids, keeping the house running smoothly while I dealt with the legal shitstorm. My parents came as well. They've always been there for me, and this time was no different. They drove down from their place, taking the kids for weekends to give me some breathing room. My dad's gruff exterior hid a heart of gold, and my mom's quiet strength was a pillar I leaned on heavily. "Son, we've got your back. Whatever happens, we'll make sure those kids are safe and happy." Their presence was a reminder of the support I had, even when everything felt like it was falling apart. My wife has now gone to her parents' place. Since I don't have enough on her to detain her, we will be getting divorced, and I want to take full custody of the kids. Having a drug addict mother is not something I want my children to witness. I need to find them a woman who will take care of them and not give blowjobs to black drug dealers. The thought of Kat back at her parents' place, probably spinning more lies about me, made my blood boil. But I had to focus on what mattered most: my kids. They needed stability, a safe environment, and a parent who was actually there for them. I started working on the custody case with Frank, gathering every piece of evidence we could find. It wasn't just about winning. It was about protecting my children from the chaos their mother had brought into their lives. I spent countless nights poring over documents, texting Frank at all hours with new bits of information or questions. The stress was eating away at me, but I couldn't afford to break down. My kids needed me strong. I made sure to be there for them, even when my mind was racing with legal strategies and court dates. We had movie nights, went to the park, did everything we could to keep some semblance of normalcy. Every day, I spent time with the kids. We went to the zoo, to the water park, and were just having a great time. But of course, they keep asking where Mom is. Each outing was a mix of joy and sorrow. At the zoo, the kids' laughter rang out as they pointed at the monkeys and fed the giraffes. The water park was a hit, with the kids screaming in delight as they slid down the water slides. But no matter how much fun we had, the shadow of Kat's absence loomed over us. "Dad, when is Mom coming back?" Tom asked one day, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and sadness. "I miss her." It broke my heart every time I had to dodge their questions, unable to give them the answers they craved, preparing for the court. The days leading up to the court date were a blur of paperwork, meetings with my lawyer, and sleepless nights. Frank and I pored over every detail, making sure our case was airtight. "We need to show the court that you're the stable parent, Sam," Frank said, his tone serious. "Kat's drug use, the danger she poses to the kids, it all needs to be laid out clearly." I nodded, exhaustion weighing heavily on me. Every night after the kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, going over our strategy, rehearsing what I'd say, trying to prepare for every possible scenario. The day before the court, some homeless drug addict tore the suit I was supposed to wear to court. I was on my way to a last-minute meeting with Frank when it happened. A guy stumbled out of an alley, high as a kite, and bumped into me. Before I could react, he grabbed my jacket and ripped it. "What the fuck, man?" I yelled, pushing him away. He staggered back, mumbling incoherently, and I just stood there, staring at the torn fabric in disbelief. It was like life was throwing every possible obstacle in my way. I ended up borrowing a suit from Mike, which didn't fit perfectly, but it would have to do. An hour before the court, my mom called to say she couldn't come because she was in the hospital. She twisted her ankle. This affected me badly because my mom is one of my role models for strength. My dad cheated on her and she worked 2 jobs to support us. Though my father changed, but that's another story. Her voice was pained, but still strong as she explained what happened. "Sam, I'm so sorry. I wanted to be there, but the doctor says I need to stay off my feet." I clenched my fist, trying to keep my composure. "It's okay, Mom. I understand. Just take care of yourself." But inside, I felt a pang of loss. My mom's presence would have been a source of strength for me, a reminder of the resilience she'd shown through all the hardships. The beginning of the court, Kat looked really bad, and it seemed to me that she was on something. When I saw her, my heart sank. Kat looked like a shadow of the woman I'd married. Her hair was unkempt, her skin pale, and her eyes had that vacant, glassy look that I'd come to associate with her drug use. She was jittery, shifting in her seat and avoiding eye contact. The sight of her in such a state was a stark reminder of why I was fighting so hard to keep the kids safe. The judge called the court to order, and the proceedings began, a tense silence filling the room. The court was postponed to the next day. Just as we were getting into the meat of our arguments, the judge announced that the session would be continued the following day. "Due to unforeseen circumstances, we will adjourn and reconvene tomorrow," he said, his gavel coming down with a sharp crack. I felt a mix of frustration and relief. Frustration that this ordeal was being dragged out even longer, and relief that I had one more night to prepare, to gather my thoughts, and steel myself for what was to come. The court started again. The next day I was back in the courtroom, dressed in Mike's ill-fitting suit, but more determined than ever. Kat looked even worse, her condition deteriorating visibly overnight. As the proceedings resumed, I laid out everything: the drugs, the lies, the danger she posed to our children. Frank was relentless, painting a picture of a woman spiraling out of control, unable to care for herself, let alone her kids. Kat's lawyer tried to counter, but the evidence was overwhelming. Every argument they made crumbled under the weight of the truth we presented. I won the court case. When the judge finally delivered his verdict, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Mr. Samuels, I find your arguments compelling and the evidence clear. You will be granted full custody of the children. Mrs. Samuels, until you can demonstrate a significant and sustained improvement in your circumstances, your visitation rights will be restricted and supervised. The relief was overwhelming. I'd done it. I'd protected my kids. But it was a bittersweet victory, knowing that the woman I once loved had fallen so far. Celebrating the victory. That evening, I took the kids out for ice cream. It wasn't much, but it was a small way to celebrate. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they could sense my relief, my joy. We laughed, ate too much ice cream, and for a few precious hours, the weight of the past months lifted. Emily and Mike joined us later, bringing a cake and some drinks. We sat around the table, toasting to the future and the hard-fought victory. A year later, life looks very different from the hell we went through. The kids and I have settled into a new rhythm, a new normal. Every day is a testament to how far we've come. I look around our new home, a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood where the kids can play outside without fear. The mornings are filled with laughter and the scent of breakfast cooking, and the nights are peaceful. The kids' soft breathing a reminder that we made it through the worst. I found a new woman who shares my values, and she also has one child. Her name is Sarah, and she's everything I could have hoped for, and more. We met at a parent-teacher conference of all places. She was there with her son Jake, who's the same age as Tom. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared experiences and the challenges of single parenthood. Sarah is strong, compassionate, and has a no-nonsense approach to life that I respect immensely. She's been through her own share of hardships, but has come out the other side even stronger. Our kids get along like a house on fire, and it's like we've been a family forever. My ex-wife completed a rehabilitation course and has apparently been clean for quite some time now. Kat's journey has been a rocky one, but she's worked hard to turn her life around. She's been attending regular therapy sessions and meetings, and she's made a genuine effort to stay sober. The woman who nearly destroyed our family is now trying to piece her own life back together. It's a strange feeling, seeing her so different from the person who tore our world apart. Part of me is proud of her progress, but another part is wary, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. My children started being bullied at school, being called the children of a slut and a junkie. Rumors and sideways glances began in the town, so we moved. It broke my heart to see them go through that, to see them ostracized for something they had no control over. The whispers behind their backs, the cruel taunts, it was too much. I knew we needed a fresh start, away from the toxicity. We packed up and left the town where we had so many memories, both good and bad, and moved to a new place where we could build a new life. The kids were scared at first, but they quickly adapted, making new friends and finding new routines. My ex-wife visits us, well, the kids. Sometimes we let them stay with her, although at first I was afraid because it wasn't clear if she might relapse. The first few times were nerve-wracking. I'd drop the kids off at her new apartment and spend the entire time on edge, waiting for a call that something had gone wrong. But she's proven herself over and over. She keeps her place clean, has a steady job, and seems genuinely committed to her recovery. The kids enjoy their time with her, and I can see how much it means to them to have their mom back in their lives, even in a limited capacity. Life started getting better. My new woman and I, even after 6 months, are still very much in love. We don't argue at all, and I love my new life. Sarah and I have built something solid, a foundation of trust and mutual respect. We support each other, laugh together, and most importantly, we love each other fiercely. It's a love that's been forged in the fires of our past struggles, and it's all the stronger for it. We spend our weekends doing family activities, from picnics in the park to movie nights at home. The kids are thriving, and so am I. Conclusion. Looking back, it's hard to believe how much has changed in such a short time. A year ago, my life was in shambles, and now I'm standing here with a future that looks brighter than ever. I won the court case, got full custody of my kids, and managed to build a new life from the ashes of the old one. Kat is still part of our lives, but in a way that's healthy and controlled. The kids have adapted to their new school, and the bullying has stopped. They're happy, and that's all that matters.